Alira sat cross-legged on the cold, iridescent floor of the observation cell, arms loose at her sides, head tilted just enough to seem docile. The ceiling pulsed with a soft green light, simulating what the aliens must have thought was a soothing atmosphere. She hadn't spoken since arrival. Not out of fear, not exactly. It was strategy. Beyond the energy barrier, 3 Tessari stood observing her, tall, insectal beings with bioluminescent thoraxes and faces that resembled jeweled death masks. They murmured in their guttural dialect, occasionally glancing at a floating glyph screen that translated their words. She wasn't supposed to see the display. She did anyway. Minimal bone density. No exoskeleton. No natural weapons. Underdeveloped stress responses. Rapid cortisol spike followed by passivity. Designation, soft-type species. Class, decorative. Pet potential, high. Alira blinked once. Deliberately. Slowly. She wanted to laugh. They'd taken her during a survey mission on a rim-world settlement. She'd been scouting alone, perimeter mapping, when the beam hit. No warning, no diplomacy. Just silence, light, and then this sterile prison. They'd never asked questions, never explained. Just began cataloging. Measuring. Dismissing. Her captors weren't soldiers. They were scientists, bureaucrats of bioethnology. More dangerous in some ways. They didn't hate her. They didn't fear her. They were simply curious, and so terribly sure of their own superiority. That was always the fatal flaw with condescending civilizations. The youngest alien, a junior biotechnic judging by the green glow of his cranial crown, stepped forward. He tapped on the containment pad. Subject Alira. Do you understand language standard? Alira looked up, said nothing. He tried again. Do you comprehend vocal structure? She blinked again, then offered a blank stare with the faintest raise of one eyebrow. The Tessari leaned back, vibrating a low-frequency chirp, amusement. He turned to his colleague. It mimics expression. Fascinating. Expression. That was what they called it. As if her silence were a biological reflex. As if restraint was the same as weakness. She stretched slowly, arms above her head, movements smooth and feline. They watched her body, noted angles, made comments on the curvature of her spine. One of them even mentioned the term aesthetic utility. They hadn't taken her seriously from the beginning. Which was perfect. The only object in the room, besides her, was a rectangular tray sitting at the back of the cell, containing what passed for a meal. Algae cubes. Protein paste. And a dull metallic utensil, 3-pronged on one end, flattened on the other. She hadn't touched it yet. The dull edge gleamed faintly. Enough metal. Enough balance. She'd counted 12 guards total in the corridors during transport. None wore live weapons, only ceremonial blades tucked into loops of cloth at their waists. Alira had already memorized the way they walked, the loose rhythm of their patrols. The Tessari had embraced peace so completely they'd forgotten how to fear blood. She hadn't. The junior technician turned to the others. We will prepare her for Harmony Blade assessment. I recommend psychological imprinting. Begin neural tuning this cycle. Alira's gaze didn't waver, though inside she catalogued every word. Harmony Blade. That was what they called their ceremonial combat rituals, more theater than battle, used to display submission and order. She'd seen the mock fights in the main hall through the glass. Dances in silk. Polished blades never drawing blood. A ritual, not a threat. And that, she thought, is why they'll never see it coming. As the trio filed out, the energy field flickered briefly, just long enough to register a delay. A hairline glitch. Less than a second. She filed it away. The silence returned, almost absolute. Only the soft hum of the ship's core engine reverberated through the floor. Alira shifted slightly, then stood in one fluid motion. She walked to the tray, picked up the utensil, and turned it in her hands. 3 tines. Flattened spine. Soft metal, but not too soft. A crude knife in trained hands. She flexed her wrist, let muscle memory whisper to her fingertips. The balance was off. The length awkward. But it could work. Not for a fight. For a message. That was all she needed. They thought her soft because she wasn't armored. Because she didn't snarl or show claws. Because she wept during the dissection of a crashling pup in the main chamber. What they failed to grasp, what every arrogant conqueror failed to grasp, was that softness wasn't the opposite of strength. It was the sheath. The blade still waited beneath. She crouched and began working the edge of the utensil along the lower seam of the observation table's support bracket. Not too loud. Not too fast. Just enough pressure to begin shaping it. Time, patience, and steel. Let them parade her into their little ceremony. Let them hand her a knife, expecting docility. Let them marvel at her pliant posture and folded hands. Then let them learn what it meant to give a human a blade and assume she wouldn't use it. Alira smiled. Just slightly. They wouldn't call her soft much longer. The hall of ritual purification reeked of antiseptic oil and crushed merpollen, an odd blend that clung to Alira's skin like ceremonial glue. She walked barefoot on polished obsidian tiles, flanked by two unarmed Tessari custodians wearing flowing translucent robes. Their antennae twitched rhythmically with each step, as though walking with her was some kind of choreographed honor. She didn't flinch. That would be a tell. Her wrists were not bound. There was no need, in their view. She had complied with every test, obeyed every feeding schedule, spoken not a single word. To them, she was the perfect specimen of a pacified soft race, a compliant curiosity, soon to be blade bonded to one of their spiritual stewards in the harmony ceremony. She'd watched one such ceremony just days earlier, pressed against the glass of her cell as two chosen captives, both from non-threatening herbivorous species, stood quietly while garlanded priests danced with dulled weapons around them. The ritual involved symbolic cuts across empty air, declarations of unity, and a final benediction. No harm. No resistance. It was theater. And this time, she was the stage. They led her into the inner sanctum. Alira's first impression was of overwhelming whiteness. Walls, ceiling, and even the sand-like granules beneath her feet shimmered like snow under floodlights. At the center of the arena stood a low pedestal upon which rested the harmony blade, a long, curved metal strip with ridged filigree and a dull shimmer. Ceremonial. Decorative. But balanced. Standing behind the blade was High Scribe Tevelek, a Tessari of advanced rank, his carapace plated in polished black enamel, a sign of senior spiritual function. His voice clicked and rolled as he addressed a modest audience of observers, technicians, scribes, 2 diplomats, and a handful of scholars watching through glass. The soft one steps into the arc of trust. With blade, she shall not harm. With presence, she shall not offend. With silence, she shall affirm her bond to the peaceful way. A lie, Alira thought. But a beautiful one. She stepped forward. Each footfall was deliberate, controlled. Her eyes never left the blade. Subject number 43. Tevelek intoned. Do you accept the honor of symbol-bound obedience under the accord of harmonic life? She said nothing. It didn't matter. Consent wasn't expected. Her silence, ironically, was interpreted as reverent assent. That made things simpler. Tevelek motioned with one hand, and the blade levitated from the pedestal, suspended in a localized gravity field. It rotated slowly in the air, glinting with every turn. Take the blade. Perform the sweep of subservience. Place it at my feet, and kneel. Alira stepped to the pedestal. Her fingers closed around the hilt. The weight surprised her, real metal. Not ceremonial alloy. This blade had been forged, not printed. It hummed slightly with kinetic tension. A perfect tool. She pivoted. And then she moved. The blade sliced cleanly through the gravity field, holding it aloft, momentum amplified by the shift of her hips and the explosive torque of her shoulders. Tevelek didn't scream. His mandibles clicked once in confusion before the blade split his thorax diagonally, severing both central nerve clusters in a single stroke. Silence dropped like a hammer. Alira dropped into a low stance. Her breathing was steady, her expression calm. The blade, Hers now dripped violet ichor. The first to move was a scribe. He ran. She didn't chase him. Instead, she stepped back toward the pedestal, swept the blade in a wide defensive arc, and waited. Let them react. Let them see her not as a display but as a threat. 2 guards burst in from the side corridor unarmed. One reached for a ceremonial staff mounted on the wall. She let him grab it, then darted forward, blade angled low. She drove the edge through the bend of his leg, slicing tendon, then spun and opened the other's abdomen with a smooth arc. Neither died. But both screamed. She wanted them to. The audience behind the glass began to panic. Red lights flared. The entire room dimmed as the emergency lockdown protocol activated. Too slow. Alira turned to the blade again. She was learning its balance, feeling its rhythm. Her body moved from memory now, sparring on rainy cement with her instructor back on Terra Nova, carving stances in the mud, training with bamboo sticks until her fingers bled. They had called it outdated, primitive, uncivilized. But a blade never ran out of ammo. It never jammed. It never hesitated. The Tessari were crumbling. One of the observers, a diplomat by the ornate rings etched into his plating, tried to issue a verbal override. Cease! You have violated! Alira hurled the blade end over end. It struck the glass, embedding with a shuddering thunk. Not deep enough to shatter, but enough to make them flinch. She walked toward it, calm as ever. From the other side, their expressions had changed. Gone were the patronizing smiles. Now there was something raw in their compound eyes. Recognition. She pulled the blade free. The glass cracked along a long spidering arc. She pressed one hand against it, let her knuckles stain the transparency with alien blood. Then she smiled. It wasn't rage that powered her. Not vengeance. It was a demonstration. Every motion was chosen. Every injury, deliberate. Let them study her now. Let them write their reports. The human was soft. Until you handed her a knife. Alira moved like smoke through the outer corridors of the Tessari barge, barefoot, silent, stained in deep violet from clavicle to wrist. The harmony blade, no longer ceremonial, hung loosely from her right hand, its edge notched from use but still deadly. Alarms echoed in a distorted cadence overhead, a mechanical wail punctuated by the shrill insectal barking of panicked command relays. She didn't run. She didn't need to. Every Tessari she encountered froze before they could think, weighed down by generations of indoctrination that told them conflict had no place in the sacred halls. Their bodies knew no war. Their instincts were academic. She passed 2 junior officers cowering behind a sensory console, both too stunned to move as she strode past. One whispered, "But she's soft." The other replied with the tremor of a question. "Was that a blade?" It had been a long time since Alira felt this alive. Not enraged, never unhinged. She operated with clinical precision. Violence wasn't the goal. It was the vocabulary. They hadn't understood her words, so she spoke in cuts. A door hissed open to her left, metal on metal, no caution. A squad of Tessari enforcers spilled in, 5 total, each holding rigid polearms charged with kinetic disruptors. Better. These ones were trained. Uniforms matte black, crests bound down for battle readiness. She admired the change in posture. At last, someone was treating her like a threat. "Subject number 43. One barked. "Drop your weapon and submit. You will be spared further harm." Alira didn't respond. Her stance widened slightly. Her fingers adjusted their grip. The lead enforcer lunged. She sidestepped and redirected the polearm with the flat of her blade, guiding it past her hip. Her other hand slammed into the creature's throat just below the mandibles, soft tissue. He went down choking. She flowed through the opening, caught the second attacker's polearm shaft mid-swing, wrenched it free, and jammed it backward into his midsection. 2 down. 3 hesitated. "Don't!" one shouted. "We're not authorized to." She closed the distance in a breath. Her blade swept high, feinted, then cut low. A tendon snapped. Another Tessari fell. The remaining 2 fled. Alira stood alone, chest rising and falling. Blood, hers and theirs, spattered her from temple to knee. The Harmony blade was slick now. Heavier. She didn't wipe it. She turned and approached the central lift shaft. Her goal wasn't escape. That would be easy. A stolen uniform, a time drop into a docking pod. No, what she needed was a broadcast. She wanted the entire sector to hear her. The lift opened without resistance. The ship's AI still hadn't classified her properly, still labeled her as non-combative biological. She stepped inside. Destination? The machine asked. Command Observatory, she said. The lift began to rise. A moment of stillness. Her reflection hovered in the polished chrome walls, foreign, primal, beautiful in a terrifying way. Her hair clung to her face in damp strands. Her eyes held no madness, only clarity. This wasn't fury. This was fluency. The observatory opened in a slow, fan-like reveal. A panoramic dome of glass overlooked the stars, and at its center floated a command terminal flanked by 3 surviving high officers. Each turned in sync, as if rehearsed. The one in the middle, First Architect Venlor, spoke first. You've proven your species difficult. I haven't begun, Alira said. You think violence makes you strong? She raised the blade. No. It makes me clear. Your aggression is archaic. Inefficient. Pointless. Efficiency is why you're bleeding. Silence followed. A long, charged pause. Venlor tilted his head. What do you want? She walked forward until she could see the galaxy reflected in the curvature of the command glass. A message, she said. For the archive. For the scholars. For the ones watching. Say it then. Alira turned slowly. Her voice was calm. Her tone absolute. You called us soft. Because we bend. Because we weep. Because we wait. But softness isn't weakness. It's patience. It's restraint. And when you mistake restraint for inability, you hand a knife to someone who knows exactly where to cut. Venlor made no move. She gestured to the command terminal. Broadcast it. Sector-wide. Let every curator, every philosopher, every peace-drenched bureaucrat hear it. One of the officers hesitated. Then obeyed. The message began streaming across ships and stations, an image of a human covered in blood, standing still beneath alien stars, blade in hand, unbroken. Alira didn't smile. She simply turned, took the blade in both hands, and sank it into the floor beside her. A gesture. Not surrender. Not defeat. A warning. From that moment forward, no one would call her soft again.